Hello. So firstly, I just want to say thank you for having me as part of this amazing conference, and I'm truly sorry I'm not able to deliver this talk in person. However, I am available on Twitter. I'll be following this and live tweeting, so do tweet at me any questions or queries you might have. I'll be part of the conversation as much as I possibly can. So yeah. This talk, Reconfiguring Community-Led Smart City Design through the Black Quantum Futurist Framework, is very much me exploring some of the issues and potential approaches around the question of smart cities and the Black urban experience. And I'm speaking very much from the perspective of a designer, of a user experience designer, and all that entails. So to begin with, I think it's kind of interesting to think about the city as a kind of a hyper enabler of social evolution, which has also been the locus of broader anxieties, whether about social revolution or the environment, child labour and real estate speculation, the list goes on. There is no physical site that better demonstrates disparities within wider society, the flows of commerce and labour that enable wider economies to work, all of humanity's technologies, be they social, such as law, religion, or material, agricultural, extractive, all of these combine at the place of the city, delicately balanced and self-evolving with the influx of new cultures, perspectives, and material that mingle and transform. Currently, over half of all humanity lives in cities, with 54% of the global population in 2015, according to the United Nations. By 2050, this is estimated to rise to 66%, with the majority of that growth being due to increased urbanization in Africa and Asia. Now, how this intersects with predictions in future migratory patterns remains to be seen, as more countries in what's called the Global South experience the ravages of climate chaos with the ensuing political, social, and material shifts they will cause. However, over 70% of the population in so-called developed countries currently live in cities, and the fact that this is expected to increase by over 20% in the next 3 decades gives food for thought, given that it is this very demographic currently using the majority of the world's resources, and whilst less susceptible to the immediate environmental impact of climate chaos, will still be dealing with its symptoms. It's also interesting that this demographic is amongst those experiencing the most rapidly decreasing birth rates. So in the face of these challenges coming in the not too distant future, the enthusiasm around smart cities is, well, understandable. Smart, with its implication of the automated, clever, clean and sophisticated, somehow manages to remain exciting in the urban context, despite the fact that the lovely bright sheen of the smart as some kind of solution to all of our problems has somewhat dulled in light of its real cost, which includes extraction processes that poison the earth and leach resources and wealth from recently colonized nations, to commercial processes that drive addiction and social disenfranchisement for the profit of a few major companies, as well as data exploitation that widens divisions and puts societies and whole nations at risk from the very platforms that have been made indispensable to them. Central to the concept of the smart city, hard as it is to properly define, is a physical site of hyperconnectivity, where services share data to enable improved efficiencies in terms of delivery, but also innovation within those services. Every aspect of city living can be impacted, from food production, as in the examples we see in Rotterdam, to transportation. But as is usually the case, the smartness is a veneer that diminishes the complex and hard work of making it all possible. Smart cities require physical infrastructure to make the connectivity possible, for example. The internet isn't magic. It requires very physical cables to be twisted and relain into very physical channels that have been dug by very real diggers. Smart cities also require improved service infrastructure. Data is key to making a smart city possible, so every single process within a council or local authority needs to transform the information that is passed through it from the communities that they ward into formats that are digestible by the systems that will ultimately connect all of these services. And examples such as the Windrush scandal give us warnings as to the fallout from top-down so-called efficiencies that do not account for shifts in government policy and existing cracks in the facade of society. So as we redesign the communication channels that make a city possible, it's crucial that resilience against the unpredictabilities of national funding, social change, and now climate is built in. One way of doing this is taking a communal approach to a system design, wherein the people who will need to live with the systems being created are part of the design process. Community-led design is already being pioneered by organisations such as Glasshouse, and this approach in many ways represents a decolonisation of design, which you can think of, to quote Rolando Vazquez, as modernity's worlding of the world. However, even this practice is subject to racial and class disparities, as can be seen in the simple question of who gets approached or who has access to local strategy to know that they can be a part of such projects. Furthermore, there is always the question, is simply being part of the process enough? Now, the Black British experience of urbanity is an interesting one, because in many ways it seems fundamental to the Black British identity, in spite of the fact that actually the Black British experience is as much rooted in the grand houses of the gentry as it is in the streets. The Black person has yet still been often castigated by this assumed identity. Yet it is as Black urban subjects that Black people have evidenced the tensions of multicultural identity in a barely post-colonial context, and tangibly experienced the various facets of white supremacist violence, whether legislative or physical. So the question I find myself thinking about a lot is, how can we as a community transform ourselves into designers of an urban futurism that Black people can survive and thrive in? Such a transformation will ultimately require a methodology that can draw on the Black genius and the Black experience as part of the design practice. Black Quantum Futurism, a practice developed by Camae Ayewa and Rasheedah Phillips of the Afrofuturist Affair in Philadelphia, draws on Africanist notions of time and space to enable the practitioner to escape linear models of the universe. To quote Mother More Goddess, it provides creatives with the framework to apply metaphysics and the science of colour and sound, along with the theories of quantum physics to recall future and past memories. From a design perspective, these memories are fundamental to the process we call requirements gathering, where we try and understand the range of experiences that inform what it is our clients need in order to provide the best solution. If we are designing the smart city for Black people, it is these memories which encode successful models of healing and transformation that are crucial to eke out as part of communal practice, so that it not only informs the design, but most importantly reaffirms the client/participant, in this case, the community. As an approach, it's, to quote, a manipulation of space-time to see into possible futures and collapse space-time into a desired future to bring it into reality, goes beyond ideating a solution for a problem of the now, but perhaps also a means to reconfigure what the problems actually are. For example, is a problem of the now also going to be a problem of the tomorrow? And if not, perhaps there are different ways to deal with it, accommodate, maybe even live with it, rather than create false solutions. The radical potential for me is that in adopting it, we are enabling the designed object to travel through time, incorporating the cycles of survival and thriving, of destruction and rebuilding, that we as humans, particularly as Black people, are well used to and have evolved to deal with. Some of these practices I have already incorporated in masquerade making workshops, which are also a site of speculative design. So where I draw inspiration from the sacred and very hidden practice of Igbo masquerade making, manu, to start helping people reconfigure their communal futures by embodying past and future into physical masquerades that can act as interventions as a particular space-time configuration. I've also found this technique to increase awareness and understanding of the shared Africanist heritage, which I think is vital as we consider the realities of how future Black people may experience the smart cities they have encountered, especially those who are encountering them as a hopeful refuge from the outcomes of climate chaos. There are a range of futurities we can look to, and yet due to various disenfranchisements, they can often seem difficult to reach. It can feel we solve one problem when another comes up, and then the old problem comes back again. But what I find inspiring and genuinely useful as we navigate these new futurities is that in Black Quantum Futurism, we have a practice that tackles this cyclicity head-on by drawing on the cyclicity of our thriving, of our transforming music, words, dance, electricity, and hardware into new, sustainable, and resilient realities for our communities. Thank you.